Matt, are you signed in to go to Twitter?
Yeah, I just did it actually.
I just got a thing that says a premium account on X is required.
Oh, I did too.
Is this brand new?
I think that is brand new.
Okay.
I have a, hang on, let me go to my account.
Okay, we're going to just a second delay
Yeah,
that.
that is new. You know, I noticed something else the other day. I tried to send somebody a DM on Twitter and it wouldn't let me do it because I'm not paying enough money a month. So sorry about this, guys.
That's okay. You know what I'm going to do? We're going to go live and it'll be wonky for just a second. I'm just going to add the YouTube.
Okay.
To the I guess that's all. I had no idea that had happened. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, more censorship, guys. What can I say? I apologize I didn't catch that, but that's what we'll do here. Okay. So we're going to start here. Okay. Well, I wonder when YouTube will do that as well.
So it says we need a premium, which is what I have. Oh, but I'm paying $4 a month rather than $11 a month, I guess. So
okay, so we are live on YouTube. I apologize, everyone. Apparently, I missed this. Matt missed this. Maybe some other people know that Twitter is now requiring a premium account to go live. So I'm just going to take 1 minute. Sorry for this sort of bumpy start here, but I'm just going to share the YouTube to my Twitter so everybody can hopefully find it, and we'll fix that for next time.
Yeah, and I think I just signed into my app store, and I think I'm upgraded now. Let's see.
Okay, well maybe you can stream directly. So I apologize, everyone, but welcome.
No, hang on. Is it gonna let me do it?
Welcome to more censorship. So here we go.
I think I have to exit this platform and come back into it. So
you know what? It's all right, Matt. Okay. I put it on the YouTube, and I'm going to be making lots of clips, so it's fine. We'll just. I think we can just keep going.
But yeah, thank you everyone for being patient with us there. This is our 18th one. 17th, and this is the first time we've had such complications. So it's actually been pretty good. So I'll knock on wood that nothing else goes wrong this evening. But thank you for joining us.
Well, it's kind of right on, on topic with all the things that we discussed. So I'll start out. I'm going to share this cartoon. Got this on the Candidates for Assange website. We're all very happy that Assange is free, but those of us that have followed the case, we know this has never been just about him, and it's really about our right to know what our government is doing. It's about, the transparency, how it is a one-way street. Our government, as this cartoon greatly illustrates, knows all about what we're doing, but when it comes to us knowing about what they're doing, it's a battle. So with that, I'm going to jump right into, I've made 2 clips from Randy Credico's show, Live on the Fly, Assange Countdown to Freedom. And these were some of my favorite. It was a 2-part series with author Adam Hawkshield. And his book is called American Midnight. And it's all about the Espionage Act and how it really, started in 1917. So let's see, here we go.
It's given an enormous power. His name is Burleson.
Well, the Espionage Act was pushed through Congress by the Wilson administration.
Whoops, sorry.
In June of 1917 is the passage of the Espionage Act. Another huge step in repression was the Cardinal. The Cardinal, who was the Postmaster General, who was given an enormous power. His name is Burleson.
Well, the Espionage Act was pushed through Congress by the Wilson administration some weeks after the U.S. entered the war. And in fact, it had little to do with actual espionage. Of the 2,000 people prosecuted under it in these years, only 10 were actually accused of being German agents in one way or another. It was basically used to silence dissent against the war, to send people to prison because they opposed this war. And it's amazing how many of those prisoners there were. During these 4 years, roughly 1,000 Americans spent a year or more in prison, and a much larger number, shorter periods of time, solely for things that they wrote or said. So that was what the act was used for. Another provision of the act gave to the Postmaster General the ability to declare a newspaper or magazine unmailable. Now, this didn't affect mainstream daily newspapers, most of which were very enthusiastic about the war, because they didn't depend on the mail. They were sold on street corners or delivered to people's homes. But for weeklies, monthlies, journals of opinion, the mail was essential in the days before the internet, radio, TV. And the Postmaster General, Albert Burleson, a former congressman from Texas, very right-wing. His family had owned 20 slaves at the time that he was born. He, in effect, used this act to shut down some 75 newspapers and magazines. And he did all this from the building that was then Post Office headquarters, the same building that 100 years later would become, ironically, the Trump International Hotel.
This Espionage Act, it does pass in 1917. It has that provision. They tried to add another provision to it, but it was to silence the press. But that didn't pass. But didn't mean they couldn't stop the press. Didn't mean they wouldn't prosecute the press. First of all, some of the papers that this guy suppressed that were unmailable was The Masses, right? Which is a very popular magazine edited by Max Eastman. And then later, they're actually charged under the Espionage Act, Max Eastman and some of the other editors.
Yeah, The Masses was really, in many ways, the best magazine in the country. It was sort of a precursor of the New Yorker, the same mix of fiction, reportage, poetry, interesting artwork. It published some of the best writers of the day, Walter Lippmann, John Reed, Edna St. Vincent Millay, Sherwood Anderson, many others. But they were strongly opposed to the war. And Albert Burleson got very angry at an issue of the Masses that was published in the summer of 1917. For example, there was a cartoon that showed the Liberty Bell crumbling. This was one of the things that he objected to. And he declared the magazine unmailable. That issue was its last. And then in addition, as you say, he put the group of editors and writers from the magazine on trial.
Okay, so I'm going to start calling Elon Musk and anyone else that censors Postmaster General Burleson. So this sort of shows the one side, which is the shutting down of our voices and of our access to information, of freedom of the press. And then this other clip, and then we'll go right into introductions. This other clip shows the surveillance that we all are dealing with now. That why this interview was so fascinating to me is to learn that this goes back over 100 years. This is not new stuff. But this story is shocking.
Some of the stories, the repression against anyone, the immigrants that were German, anyone that spoke out. Karl Schoberg, can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, Schoberg was a cobbler of German descent, but he'd been in this country since the age of 5 in Covington, Kentucky, right across the Ohio River from Cincinnati. And he, ran a shop where he repaired shoes and chatted with customers when they came in. And one day in early 1918, a couple of guys showed up at his shop and said, "We're here to fix your electric meter." And so they went to the back of the shop, fiddled with the meter, and were there for a while. A couple months later, they came back, said the meter needed to be repaired further, did some more work on it, then they went away. And a couple months after that, Schoberg and 2 of his friends were startled to be arrested and charged with treason under the Espionage Act. The people fixing the electric meter, so-called, were private detectives who'd been hired by a local vigilante group to plant a microphone in Schoberg's shop, and they had recorded with this microphone his having private conversations with his two friends about the progress of the war. And they had said things like, wow, aren't those German generals pretty damn good? Which was a sensible enough thing to say in 1918 when Germany, with its pioneering stormtrooper tactics, had broken through the Allied front lines and looked as if it was about to be able to capture Paris, which would have really upended the war. But for these and other remarks, these three guys were charged under the Espionage Act and sentenced to federal prison, simply for opinions they had voiced to each other in the privacy of this cobbler's shop. This was the sort of an index of the kind of insanity and paranoia that was in the air in this period.
Wow. I mean, we're talking about some primitive taping machines. I mean, we got the NSA today, the CIA that can catch just about anything. But back then they had these primitive microphones. You got to read the book.
So I think what we'll do, I will rebroadcast this. I'll fix this. I'll upgrade Twitter to our account to premium so that we can I'll just rebroadcast this live, because our views are way down. So this is suppression right here. But Matt, I'll toss it to you.
Well, thanks, Kelly, and thank you all for joining us, and for everyone who's watching. And if people aren't familiar with Adam Hochschild, he is just an absolutely brilliant historian and author, and some of his works are just absolutely terrific. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. Just like to go around, have you all introduce yourselves, who you are, where you're running, what you're running for, of course, and then why are you here tonight? Julian Assange has been set free. Kelly and I went back and forth as to whether or not we would keep the name for this broadcast, Candidates for Assange, or if we change it to something like Candidates for the First and Fourth Amendment. And we decided to keep it for Candidate Assange. But Julian Assange is a free man. So why are you all here tonight on this program when we've kept that name? But Tyler, you're in the top left here for me, so we'll start with you, please.
My name is Tyler Merced. I really appreciate you having me on the show tonight. I'm running for Utah's 2nd District of the House. So currently Celeste Malloy is the incumbent. And so there's a tight race between her and Colby Jenkins in the primary. And I'm not sure that that's actually been settled yet to see who will be the Republican nominee. I'm in Utah almost every time the Republican will take the seat. I'm running as unaffiliated, even though I'm registered Republican. So what I'm running on, I have a kind of a unique campaign promise, and I have one unique that one campaign promise is that I will vote on bills as directed by the majority of those in my district. Now, what that means is, how will I know what the majority of those in my district wants? Well, I'm in the process of creating an app that will allow registered citizens to vote on bills that come up in Congress. And I'm pledging to vote with the majority of those people 100% of the time. So it's interesting that you say that, we need some transparency in government. And I think there's a lot of obfuscation and there's not a lot of transparency in the voting process as far as being able to track where our vote goes from when we place it to when it's counted, and everything in between. Now, I'm not suggesting that our votes be unmasked and everyone knows how we vote, but I believe that we should know and be able to track our votes from when we place them to when they're counted, and make sure that none are added or subtracted in between. But the main part of my campaign is bringing it back to the people. I think there's a lot of corruption, obviously, in the government. And instead of having to just convince one senator or one representative, now you're going to have to convince a whole district or a whole state to sway my vote. Right. So that's what I'm running on. Why I'm here tonight, I'm not exactly sure how I got an invitation, but I am very supportive of the First and the Fourth Amendment and Julian Assange, for that matter. I think he's been unlawfully detained for years, and they've really never really explained the exact rationale for why, besides, we don't like what he did. He did not steal this material. It was given to him, as in my understanding, and all he was doing was relaying that information. And so that's why I'm supportive of him and what he was doing. I think he was very brave and courageous in this whole saga. So that's why I'm here tonight. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you for joining us, Tyler. And I think certainly we can get into really good conversation later on if we head that way about what you're proposing there and why the Fourth Amendment in particular for keeping people's ballots protected while at the same time allowing for a transparency in government, which is ultimately what the First Amendment is about as well, right? So you've got that balance right there. But Lily, you're next in line here.
Hello, my name is Lily Benavides. I am in New Jersey, running for Congressional District 11, and thank you for inviting me. This is the second time that I come in the show. First time, I don't know how much you heard because I was at the pen station. It was difficult. And today, I was an hour earlier, and I was like getting crazy thinking that I didn't have signal because nobody was there. It's 9 here, so it said 8, and I didn't pay attention, I guess. Anyways, yeah, it's great that Julian Assange is free, but it's at a cost because obviously he had to do something that he probably wouldn't have done, but it's so long being in jail and away from his family and his health, it wasn't good, so he had to do what he had to do, but is not a good precedent for journalists. And things are very, very difficult now. I mean, that's why I came back because we have to talk about these things. Our freedom of speech is going by the door. We can't say anything. Everything is getting prohibited, and yeah, the social media is suspended or canceled, and we can't wear anything. Talking about Palestine, we cannot wear a kafia, we cannot wear a pin. I can't say that have personal happened to me, but many other people that I know, and very close, just in New York, just on the subway, people attacking people on the subway because of that. I mean, everywhere. So, but in New Jersey, the approval of the IHRA that passed the Congress is going to Senate, and and it was it's a bill that is basically made by the two parties, and one made it and the other one is going to approve it, so doesn't make any difference on that. And here, people are getting fired from work, students getting fired from schools because of their support to Palestine. So, and that's just, I mean, these things have happened all along for years, but it's more obvious now because of social media, and I think they could get like really bad, like worse than that, very, very bad. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean the history that Kelly was just showing us there, 110 years ago or so, it's the same, just supercharged now in a lot of ways because of our technology, right? But thanks, Lily, for joining us. And actually, when you were doing it from the train station last time, it was shocking actually how well we could hear you. It worked out pretty well. But Ted, you're next in line, please.
Oh, hi there. Yes, and thanks for having me. My name's Ted Brown, and I'm the Libertarian Party candidate for U.S. Senator in Texas. And I'm running against both Ted Cruz, the Republican incumbent, and Colin Allred, the Democratic candidate. Neither of them are well known as great proponents of free speech or the Bill of Rights. In fact, I'm even calling myself the better Ted, and comparing my name, where I'm Bill of Rights Ted versus Loss of Rights Ted. That's sort of sloganeering for the campaign. But I should point out that I have read the book that you were describing earlier, American Midnight by Adam Hochschild, and that's an excellent book, and it's very upsetting for any of us who are strong supporters of the First Amendment and freedom of speech. And I've also read his other book called King Leopold's Ghost, which is about how the Belgians and their king committed genocide against Africans in the Congo. And I forget the exact time period, but it was sometime in the late 1800s, I believe. And it's just disgusting. And someone like me, who's a strong believer in human rights and in personal freedom and all that, is just gets very upset by this kind of activity. And I'm glad that Adam has brought that to our attention by his books. Now, Julian Assange was certainly, and we need to be on the air here, I think, because we still need Julian Assange. We still need WikiLeaks, and for them to come up with more exposés of governments from not just ours, but around the world that are violating people's rights and doing harmful things to people. And that should never stop, because there's a need for that, because there's so many countries where information is just not available to the public to know what their government's doing, what their leaders are doing. And I think it's vital for everyone to know that. So I hopefully Julian Assange will continue his efforts in the expose and the whistleblower world. Now, in this country, though, we do have a Bill of Rights. The first through Eighth Amendments are the ones dealing with our different liberties, specified. Then the Ninth and 10th are more general. And I've always been a First Amendment absolutist. I believe when it says Congress shall pass no law respecting freedom of speech, that's what it means. You have the right to say what you want. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody can't sue you for slandering them or something. But as from a legal point of view of being charged with a crime or something, no way. There's should have free reign on that. And people are being censored now. Maybe not by the government, but by people on both sides of the political spectrum. People who are right-wing and Republican want to limit the views of those who are left-wing and Democrat, and vice versa. And I think Lily was talking about the Israel-Gaza conflict, and frankly, if you have a view on either side of that, or on either side of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, you should be free to express your opinion without being removed from public forums and being fired from your job or removed from your school or whatever the case may be. We need to have on these discussions, we need a mature, rational discussion of every issue, not just, oh my God, that's something you can't say. I mean, that's not what this country is all about. I want to be able to for people to be able to speak freely about every issue. And that's certainly one of the, a major plank of my campaign is to support free speech and the rest of the Bill of Rights. You'd mentioned the Fourth Amendment. I'm in favor of all of them, of course, protecting our privacy and our right to be, free from unreasonable searches, cruel and unusual punishment, just all across the board, because this is what makes America different than every other country. And the First Amendment perhaps is the most different of all, because you even see in European countries, which are supposed to be free countries, and Canada and all of them, that it's very easy to pass laws in those countries against free speech. Like they call it hate speech, but it's really just a difference of opinion. So that's why we have to defend the First Amendment here. If we don't have the First Amendment, we go down the rabbit hole of those countries, and we'll lose our freedoms and not be able to express any alternative viewpoint to whatever the government wants us to believe.
Well, I like very much, Ted, how you differentiate yourself from your fellow Ted down there by going by Bill of Rights, Ted. And I think that's great. Carolyn, you're up next, and you're Texas as well.
I am Texas. Yeah, I'm Caroline Kane. I'm a Christian constitutional conservative. I am the Republican nominee for Congressional District 7 here in Texas. The incumbent is Lizzie Fletcher, and she's been in office since 2018. It was a historically red district for decades and decades until Lizzie came in and said that she was a moderate. She's quite an actress. She does what the Democrats do really well, and that is does word salad and really will tell you the opposite of what is the truth. And so she sends out her newsletters and she says, oh, I voted this way on this bill, and this is what the bill says. And the bill actually says the opposite of that. So you really need a decoder ring, which is, par for the course right now in history, which relates to the First Amendment, right? I mean, that's how you usher in communism, is you destroy the First Amendment and you pervert history and you pervert the media and the news, and you feed narrative and propaganda so that we all buy into a collective idea of what's really happening. And gratefully, people are starting to break free of that. It's been a long road for me, and it really kind of depends upon when you broke free from that spell. And so I broke free about 5 years ago, and so I've been waiting for folks to catch up. At this point, I can see that our Constitution has been under attack for at least 100 years, probably a bit longer. This is a long-term game plan that has been gamed out methodically over a very long period of time to bring us to this point in history right now. And Julian Assange is a hero. I have prayed and prayed and prayed for him. I'm so grateful that he's finally free. We don't imprison people that expose, criminals that are running our government. Those people that are doing the exposing are protected by the First Amendment, and this government is not. We're run by a bunch of criminals. That was a hard pill to swallow, but that is the truth. And that's all that Julian has ever done, is expose what's going on at the highest levels of government. It's a lot of absolutely criminal and disgusting, vile things that have been hidden from the American people. And yet here we are. I am looking forward to the Seth Rich murder being exposed. That was really, I think, the straw that broke the camel's back and put Julian in prison, is that was about to be exposed. So I'm grateful that we're finally to this point in history, where the people can finally rise up and take charge of their own government like they were supposed to. We all fell asleep at the wheel, and we let a bunch of criminals take over our government, and we've got to take it back. So I'm very grateful to be here. I thank you for having me on. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I appreciate seeing that big smile of yours when you talk about Julian being free. I think we all feel that way, right? So I'm going to throw it back to Kelly. And just so you all know, a lot of times what we do is Kelly will play us a video, and then that'll be a sort of a prompt for us to have a discussion. So I'll give it back to Kelly.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, some people say to me, how are you doing this? It's such a tightrope when we have people, a lot of times we have a lot of third party and independent candidates, but we do have Democrats and Republicans on as well. And I'm just always I try to focus on the things where we overlap, and we may have different, some different terminology for things, but I really believe that there's about 70% of issues that we really, there is a way to move forward and stop the partisan, fighting. And of course, this week things have been at a really heightened level. So I do have more clips, but I don't want to just take the whole time doing that. I want to get into, Matt, we may do this more next week, but we've got a great libertarian here, and I know you guys know your Constitution inside and out. So maybe you have some comments on this. I've been, looking into further sort of like the historical rulings about what determined what was hate speech and what is really inciting violence. And there's like the Shank ruling. And so I have some of that, but I don't want to take up the whole time. So if anybody wants to speak on that, that's a big controversy right now. Like what is okay to say and what is inciting violence? Any thoughts?
There is the issue of like fighting words. And I think some of those cases, I forget which ones, I did study constitutional law in college, but that was about 40 years ago. But there were cases involved where they came up with the idea of yelling fire in a crowded theater, for example, is something that would be banned, though I think they mean falsely, because obviously if there really is one, you want to know. But the point is about fighting words, where someone was convicted of a crime just because he was saying words to another individual that might stimulate that person to get upset with him and fight with him. And that was ruled as not being free speech back in the 20s or 30s, sometime back there. So I'm not sure if that's been overturned or not. But what I wanted to mention is talking about protest and free speech. One case that I studied in school a long time ago was about the Haymarket riots in Chicago in 1886. These were May Day riots having to do with there was like a demonstration or like a rally in favor of workers' rights for like an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day or whatever they were trying to get back then. And there were some agents provocateur that apparently threw a bomb and killed some police officers, and which is terrible, of course. But the bombers were never found. But the organizers of the rally were put on trial for causing the deaths, and some of them were actually executed, and others were put in prison for a long time until they were pardoned by a governor many years later who was sympathetic to the labor movement. But that was an issue where in the class, I was the only person that believed that certainly the people who were speaking in favor of the labor rights had the absolute free speech rights. But looking now more sophisticatedly about the judicial system, obviously anybody that wasn't there or speaking or just somewhere organizing a rally for free speech should certainly never be charged with a crime. And I was just reading last week that there's currently something just like that going on in Louisiana. There was some kind of I believe it's one of the George Floyd police brutality rallies back in 2020. And a cop was injured in that rally, and he sued the guy that organized the rally, even though that person had nothing to do with the officer being injured. So this is in the courts now as to whether this individual who was promoting free speech and should be allowed to do that without being threatened with severe financial penalties for doing so. So this issue is still in the courts. It was in the courts in 1886, and it's still in the courts today. And we're going to see a lot more of that. I mean, people being put on trial, maybe in this case not on trial, but being sued. And the punishment, the process is the punishment on a lot of these things where you're just driven bankrupt or something, trying to defend yourself. And so we really have to stand up for the free speech people to hold rallies, demonstrate, express their views in so many different ways, as long as they're not actually harming anyone. And if someone does harm someone, it's the actual person that does the harming that's responsible, not everybody involved in the rally, including the person that organized it. And I think that's something that needs to be clear. We should be encouraging people to be protesting and not make it the laws such that discourages them from doing so because they're afraid to do so. The fear has no place in this country when we're supposed to have all these rights to protect us.
Right. Yeah. Others thoughts on what Kelly brought up there? This idea is that should there be limits? Should there be caps? I mean, especially if for those who are running as outsiders, if you will, you run into this in your campaigns, being political outsiders. Limits you find as well. Maybe it's not the hard censorship of government, but maybe it's just the fact that the press won't talk to you. So thoughts on any of that?
I have no desire to talk to the press.
Well, that's a good way, though. That's actually a good way to get the word out. If the press will talk to you, even if they, mangle what you say, it might cause someone to say, look you up and check you out. Otherwise, it might be hard for them to hear about your campaign. I mean, I find it difficult as a third-party candidate, as a libertarian, to get on any interviews. That's why I'm very happy that you have me on here, because it's very difficult to get interviews in the mainstream press and all. They just ignore third-party candidates. I don't feel that I'm limited from my views are limited or anything. It's just a matter of finding a way to get them out there. And
right.
So that's the main problem. I don't think I'm being censored in any way deliberately. It's just they want to sell newspapers, they want to sell advertising or whatever the case may be, and they're controlled by big corporations that run everything. So right. They do things their way. I don't expect to be put in jail for my views, but I also am sorry that more people aren't going to be hearing my views.
And Tyler, how about yourself? You were talking before about one of the things you want is more direct democracy, right? And so that would necessitate using, the communication we have now through the new technologies we have to do so. But doesn't that also have an aspect of direct communication, right? Being able to speak to people directly, as opposed to having going through a third party, a filter, a press. Even your view, how do you feel about that type of thing?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We need a more direct form of democracy, in my opinion. Right now, we just we vote for our representatives and our senators. We cross our fingers, and invariably we're disappointed. They, there's a lot of people that talk a good game, and as soon as they get there, they are immediately they're immediately taken over by the blob there, or whatever you want to call it. And it's imperative that we have the information that we do. I know we were kind of talking about X which was formerly Twitter, but thank goodness that Elon Musk did buy that, in my opinion, because if we didn't have that forum that we could freely express our beliefs, who knows what the government would be pulling on us. I mean, there's all sorts of things that had we had X in the beginning, that there'd be a lot more transparency, and we'd know a lot more about it. So, as far as me getting my idea out there, yes, it's very difficult as an independent, and I often wonder, why did I run as an independent instead of a Republican? But that's too late to worry about now. And now it's just a matter of getting the idea that we can bring the power back to the people. I'm not saying we need a more pure democracy where the whole country is voting on things. I'm saying what I'm putting forth can be done without any constitutional amendments. We can come together as citizens and let our representatives know what we want, and we can very, very transparently know how they're voting, and we can compare that with the vote. And if they're not lining up with what we want, well, then they've got to go the next time. So yes, I'm very supportive of that type of thing, of a more direct form of democracy.
Well, Carolyn, I want to come back to you in a second, but I want to give Lily a chance to chime in before I go back to Carolyn for a follow-up.
And I've got a clip for what Tyler said, but Lily, you go first.
Okay.
Lily, you're muted.
Sorry. Okay. About again, that we are not free to express ourselves. I mean, anything that we say is taken as hate speech, basically. And how they are, government or the police or whoever is, trying to restrain people from that freedom. We had two incidents. We had one incident in, here in New Jersey, are ceasefire Sundays that we do, and there was this guy that just jumped out of the car, and he came like very, very close to us. We were standing there about to leave, and we really didn't know what he was going to do. So we were trying to, everyone was trying to protect everyone, and he was just screaming and saying a bunch of strange things. But anyways, the problem is that the police was recording the whole thing because they came right away, and then they accused one person that was there, that she was organizing the event without a permit and was causing a disturbance, and I don't know what else. And she wasn't even the organizer, and she hardly, she really didn't say anything to the guy, but he came very close to her, and it happened that she was the only Black person in there, and she has, she's dealing with that at the court, and we don't know what's going to happen with that, but that's in South Orange in New Jersey, if anyone wants to know. And now the police doesn't allow us to stand in one place to do the rally. We have to walk around. We cannot use speakers. Yeah. The other incident was okay. I think I forgot that one. Okay, but things are very, very complicated for any of us that go to rallies and protests.
Right, and no matter what side you're on issues, you should have the right to protest. But I wonder if anyone's ever seen this. It's a Princeton study, but it's about representation. Just a quick clip.
Researchers at Princeton University looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer a pretty simple question. Does the government represent the people? Now, this is what they found. This axis here represents public support for any given idea. On the left at 0% are ideas that not a single American wants. On the right at 100% are ideas that everyone supports. This axis represents the likelihood of Congress passing a law that reflects any of these ideas, from a 0 to a 100% chance. On this graph, an ideal republic would look like this. If 50% of the public supports an idea, there's a 50% chance of it becoming law. If 80% of us support something, there's an 80% chance. You get the idea. Now, most Americans would probably agree that, with a few exceptions, we should be as close to this ideal as possible. Unfortunately, the way America actually works doesn't even come close. Take an idea that nobody supports, literally nobody, and it has about a 30% chance of becoming federal law. Now, take an incredibly popular idea, the most popular idea this country has ever seen, and there's also about a 30% chance of it becoming law. This means that the number of American voters for or against any idea has no impact on the likelihood that Congress will make it law. Put another way, and I'm just going to quote the Princeton study directly here, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy.
That's a incredible video.
Send that to me, Kelly.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
You need to send that to me. That was
Okay, I will.
mind-blowing and so true. I mean, we'll find the very best candidate, and you're so excited. They've got this great background, great philosophy. You know that they're just going to be fantastic. And the next time you see them after they've arrived in D.C., they're covered in swamp creature moss. And it happens over and over and over again. And so I tell people, I said, I'm going to get an apartment there. And after work, I'm going straight to my apartment. I'm going to be the loneliest person in Congress because I'm not going to have a drink with anybody. I'm not having dinner with anybody. I'm going straight to my apartment, and I'm going to call my friends or call my husband at home to keep me company, because the first thing they want to do is get you compromised. There is no other explanation for how these people end up the way that they are, voting the way that they do. I mean, America is... it's like the Titanic. We're sinking on a daily basis, and yet they send 90 billion life rafts overseas, which we're gratefully on this call with a lot of constitutionalists. And if you look up Article 1, Section 8, nowhere does it say that we can send money overseas. It's just not there. And so we're violating the Constitution over and over and over and over again. And so, I mean, I would say probably half of the bills that get passed are unconstitutional and need to be declared null and void. It's going to be a hornet's nest. People are not going to like me. They're not going to like anybody on this call if we, when I make it to Washington, D.C. I'm not going to be a popular person, and that's completely fine. I am not doing this for me. I'm doing it for our kids and our grandkids, because this isn't America anymore.
Well, I agree with Caroline about the unconstitutional laws, except I think she's a little bit low on that. It's probably up more like 80 or 90% are unconstitutional. But what I wanted to point out was about the part about the Congress and also state legislators not really doing what the public wants. The abortion issue is an interesting issue that's come up recently, where we have the recent Supreme Court decision that banned abortion in so many different instances. But then people who are in favor of abortion rights in states where you can put voter initiatives on the ballot and referendums have gotten those on the ballot and passed abortion rights in that fashion, like even in conservative states like Kansas and Ohio, for example. And they're going to be on, I think Florida's going to have that on the ballot as well. And the politicians don't want that, but the voters are bypassing them on that particular issue. And that's done quite a bit in the states that do have the initiative process, and quite a few of them do, mostly in the West, but certainly some other states as well, where voters can actually get signatures and place measures on the ballot to vote on if they're not getting satisfaction from their politicians on the state level. So I think that's a little bit of a help in some of the states that have that. Now, here in Texas, there's no citizens initiative, and I bet if there was one, there'd be a lot of bills passed that are not getting through the legislature. For example, legalizing marijuana, for example, which is being held up by one guy, the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick. But voters would overwhelmingly pass that if it got on the ballot, if we only had the initiative process here. So sometimes, at least on the state level, voters can override or go around the state legislators. Thank goodness. We don't have that nationally. I'm not sure if it'd be a good idea nationally or not. It's such a large entity, for everybody to vote in the whole country. But it should be maybe a possibility where we could go around Congress. I would just worry about sometimes public opinion is the opposite direction. It might be worse than Congress in some ways to want to violate more people's rights than even the Congress people do, because some people get an idea in their head that's hard to get rid of. Even though it might be wrong from a factual point of view.
Yeah. Well, so things are kind of dovetailing here, right? And so the question I have for you all is how do you get information out? Caroline, you said earlier you don't go to the press. Tyler, you were talking about these aspects of direct democracy, and then certainly Ted, that's what you were alluding to, with the ability for citizens to vote directly on ballot measures. So how do you all get information out about your campaign? I think it's important for people who are watching, but then also for the four of you in this solidarity that you have as candidates running, as people, as Caroline said, maybe it was Caroline who said, maybe it was someone else who said how people aren't going to like us if we get into office. And I know you mean not the people, but the people in power. So how do you get information out about your campaign, about your views? Lily, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, I guess we are thankful now for social media because we wouldn't have another way. I'm running with the Green Party, and they don't let us, put anything out in a newspaper or anywhere, basically. And even in social media, they're always trying to block us, or cancel our accounts. I'm sorry about the noise. I want to say that I agree with Caroline, and I would probably be alone there as well because I was a state legislator in New Hampshire many years ago, and I was running with the Democrats. And just since the first day, they didn't like me because I wasn't going along with them, with the things that they were doing. My thoughts about being a legislator was for different ideas, and I didn't like that. So I had a miserable time there. Okay, thanks.
Well,
At the end of the
Please go ahead.
So I do a lot of podcasts. I gratefully have 10,000 followers on Twitter, and a local contact here and a state contact for media. And it is, they're right media. It's not going to be ABC, CNN, any of those. But they are widely read publications, especially by conservatives. Now, how we get that into these swing voters' hands, that's kind of a different story. And so I'm doing a lot of outreach. We're doing some pool parties. We've got some like mini rallies planned with other candidates. And then I'll do podcasts whenever I have the opportunity. So there's if you go over to Rumble and you put my name in, there's probably several dozen in there. So I talk as much as I can and push out ads on Facebook. I am not a Facebook fan. I think that Mark Zuckerberg is one of the most wicked people on the planet. And so I have a hard time with that one. But Twitter's fantastic. It's kind of where the grown-ups are. I do have TikTok and I have Instagram. And so I'll spend some money on some ads from time to time, pushing out content. As we get closer to the general election, there's going to be a lot more content that's pushed out, especially kind of opposition research on my opponent. So right now I'm just keeping a little bit of a low profile, trying to fundraise as much as possible. It is very expensive to do this. And so gaining support, doing interviews for endorsements with some local, business entities and that kind of thing. It is grassroots. It's grassroots led. I had hoped to raise $1.5 million. That's not going to happen. I'm at this point, I'm hoping to raise about 600,000. And given the current climate, I think that, every day America is unifying. I think you said, 70% of the time we're agreeing on everything. And I would wager that it's more than that. I think that the things that are important to Americans right now, we're agreeing probably 85% of the time. And abortion is a contrived issue. It is planted into people's heads that this is important to you. I had a 70-something-year-old gentleman come up to me just out in the field and say, he's a Democrat. One question for you, Caroline. What's your stance on abortion? And I wanted to say, why do you need one? Do you have a 20-year-old girlfriend that I don't know about? Why is this important to you? Why would that be the one and only question that you would have for a candidate? Because it obviously is not something that's affecting your life. How's your price at the grocery store? How's your price at the gas tank? How's your electric bill? How's your water bill? How are your taxes? How are your insurance? Are these not the things that are important to you right now? Are you worried about that southern border being open? Are you worried about fentanyl? Are you worried about child trafficking? These are the things these are real issues, and they affect every single one of us. Pornography in the schools, right? Indoctrination of our kids where they hate each other, they hate their parents, they hate their country, and they hate God. These are like real problems that I would say 80% of most Americans are like, we can't have this. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just trying to focus on that 80%, get us all together, get us across the finish line and get the country back. And, for me, abortion is an issue between you, your spouse, and the doctor. Right. And how it has become a political issue in the last 50 years is beyond me, right? We've made it 3,000 years without a single mention of it in the Bible. Really? So we've got to get past what the propaganda and narrative is. I think people are breaking through that. And so we got to keep, speaking common sense. That's what it's all about. That's how we get the country back. American values, common sense.
Right. And so, Tyler, how do you communicate to that 80%, that 70, 80, whatever the number is that are in agreement here, right? How do you communicate to them?
Well, the biggest thing that's moved the needle for me is just the face-to-face. I don't have a big social media footprint yet. I'm just starting in politics, so to speak. I've come into this kicking and screaming. This is not something that I wanted to do, but I felt that I needed to do something. And the most common thing that people say when I tell them, hey, I'm going to vote with the majority, and they say, aren't we already doing that, or isn't that how it should be? And so there is this huge disconnect between what's going on in Washington, D.C. and what the people want. That video was fantastic. I personally think we should pass far fewer laws just to begin with, but that's a whole other subject. But at least the people need to have a little bit more input on that. And so, like I say, the biggest thing that moves the needle for me is the face-to-face. I would love to be connected with more, more interviews and things like that. So, the Facebook, the Twitter, the X.com, those are the things that I'm working on to try to build a following, build a community that understands that we can do it a lot better than what's going on right now. And we can still do it without any sort of constitutional amendment. We can just come together as people and say, this is what I want, and I want you to do that. And that's what I'm running on.
Yeah.
Well, the face-to-face that you just mentioned, I mean, so often we hear the candidates that we speak with, they're running against incumbents that are never even there in their district, and the people don't know them. And I think that's just so important. And I got to pull up a little graph here. And this is no dig at our person, Caroline, who is running with a major party. But this just, illustrates, this is from March 2023, where people are, right? They're not always with the parties. And then this is my other favorite one. People that say you can't vote for or a third party or independent or a, maybe kind of a non-traditional Republican or Democrat or small d, small r candidate can't win. And I love this cartoon because, we had in 2020, 80 million people didn't vote. And if you just can get those people that are kind of apathetic, in your district where you are, to see that it's possible for you to represent them. I don't know. I have a lot of hope in that.
I do too.
In that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
We're getting to the top of the hour now. So we're going to need to wrap it up. So if we could, I guess, maybe go around the horn, and if you could just remind everybody who you are, where you're at, how do people get a hold of you? How do people support you? And then, of course, any closing thoughts on all this. This was a terrific conversation tonight, you all. Really, I think one of the best ones we've had, I feel like. So I appreciate you all joining us. But Ted, if you want to start first, and then we'll just circle around.
Sure. Again, thanks for having me on. I'm Ted Brown. I'm running for U.S. Senate in Texas as the Libertarian Party candidate. Please go to my website at tedbrown.org, and you can donate there, which would be great, because obviously money is the mother's milk of politics. But you can also check me out on Twitter at Ted Brown Liberty. I'm on Facebook at Ted Brown, Libertarian for U.S. Senator from Texas. And, I certainly want to get the word out that way. I wanted to mention, Caroline mentioned TikTok, and I'm the only candidate in the race that doesn't want to ban TikTok. Both Cruz and Allred want to ban TikTok, and half of all Americans are on it. I want to get on there, but I'm kind of old, so I've never been on TikTok. So I do want to do that to let young people know that that I'm the candidate that wants to keep them on there and not censor things, because libertarians don't believe in censorship. I don't ban things. Libertarians don't ban things. And I believe in free speech 100%. And anybody needs to be able to say their piece. And if people agree with them, fine. And if not, fine. But at least they're out there saying it. And that's what I want to get across in this campaign. I'm promoting personal freedom and economic freedom. And people just need to hear the message. And I sure hope I can get it out there.
All right. Thank you, Ted.
Well, you'll be on TikTok soon, because I make clips, and we have a Candidates for Assange on TikTok. And I find it's very effective, because, we've got short, 2 to 4 minute clips, and people really, pay attention to that. So it's been effective. Okay. So Caroline next. Okay.
So yeah, I'm Caroline Kane. You can find me at www.carolinekaneforcongress.com. I'm Caroline Kane TX on Twitter, Caroline Kane for Congress on Facebook. I think it's Caroline Watson Kane on Instagram, and TikTok is just Caroline Kane. So I just want a much, much smaller federal government. The whole reason I'm running is to cut the purse strings, guys, so that we can get back our local and state governments. We don't really stand a fighting chance when we're fighting against the federal dollars that have been weaponized against us. So at every level here locally in the state, we are fighting an agenda, a narrative that is funded by a huge machine called the federal government. So I want to de-weaponize that, defund it, so that we can get back to a constitutional form of government, government for and by the people.
Lily?
Okay. My name is Lily Benavides. I'm running for Congressional District 11th in New Jersey with the Green Party. My website is www.lilybenavides4congress.us. I'm on Instagram and Facebook is the same, Lily Benavides 4 Congress. And on TikTok and X is Lily 4 Congress. I'm not that active in social media, but I try my best, but I'm doing all by myself. So I'm looking for volunteers and also for donations, because the Green Party doesn't run with money for corporations. So we need donations to be able to run our campaigns. My main priorities are affordable housing, to reduce the military spending, and free education, and an immigration restructuring of the whole system. I think all the issues in general are connected, but these ones are most important to me right now. And we are having 13 people running in New Jersey, so we kind of choose different issues so we can all cover everything that's going on. Okay.
And Tyler, can you quickly also mention your the app that you or the bill that you built and where people can find that? I'm really curious. I want to talk to you more about that later sometime, maybe.
Okay. The app is not built. It's under development. I'm calling it Voting Act. So I have a website for that, votingact.com. It's very basic. I don't have really hardly. It's just the bare bones of what I'm proposing. So votingact.com. My personal website for my campaign is tylermercet.com, and that's spelled MURSET. And if you just Google my name, Tyler Mercet, there's only one other Tyler Mercet in the whole United States, and he's not running for Congress as far as I know. I'm on X at Tyler Mercet. I'm on Facebook, Tyler Mercet for Congress. I'm on, I can't remember if I'm on any others, but this is the thing that I would like to end with. It's I'm running to reduce the corruption in Congress, and I think we need to get a lot of the power that's currently in Congress and bring that back to the people. And there's the representatives are not representing us well, as you showed in that video. There didn't seem to be any correlation with the popularity of a bill with how it got passed at all. And I think that we need to change that. I think that if we get one person to run on this idea of running and voting with the people, voting with the majority of the people, that idea is going to snowball. This idea of voting with the majority is not just meant for me. It's meant to go all across the United States because the people aren't represented. And I think all of us would agree that the people aren't represented well, and that's the reason that we're all running. I'm running to reduce corruption in government. I'm running to represent the people a lot better than they currently are.
Wonderful. Well, all of you give me so much hope, and I hope people in your district pay attention and vote for you. Thank you so much. I actually don't have a song to end on tonight, but I was thinking about playing but I decided it wasn't the video, Matt, we discussed.
Yeah. It's also really long too, so yeah.
It's too serious an issue, so we'll save that for maybe later. But I'm going to rebroadcast this because we usually at least have a couple hundred views, and I'm looking at 3 right now. With Twitter. So I will rebroadcast it, and I will also reach out to all of you with clips to put on TikTok for get your approval before I post them. But
thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great
to meet you all.
God bless you guys. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Night.